we are one race, and even this one race that we are, the human race, is only temporary in this short-term existence. The all of everything, the creator of all, is what each and every one of us is. We are a fractal of that.
Yes.
So when we function in belief only, what other unconscious, unawakened people that don't function in oneness have taught us, I don't care if it's your damn religion, I don't care if it's your parents and your family and your neighborhood and your whatever. This is the crap we're taught. And then we live out that reality, and the evidence is always going to mirror back to us that we're right.
Yep.
Right? It's always going to mirror back what we believe. Stop believing and instead function in a level of divine truth, which is we are one. Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode. Welcome, beautiful souls, to Masters of Self University podcast. I'm Rachel Fiori, your host for this episode. We're going to dive into the illusion of race, because that's exactly what it is. There is only one race, people, the human race. For the love of Christ, how are we still having to have this conversation? But we do have to have this conversation because we still function at levels of consciousness that force us to have these conversations. But here's the most beautiful gift I'm going to give to you today. There are two of them, actually. They are in beautiful forms, these amazing beings. One is called Tezra Bryant. The other calls himself David Williamson. And these two magnificent souls are here with me today to discuss the illusion of race. Tezra Bryant, I would love to introduce her for the very first time at Masters of Self University, because she is one of our mystical professors that is teaching a class starting in 2025 called The Illusion of Race. Tezra, welcome to this podcast and to Masters of Self University.
Rachel, thank you so much. And I am so elated and excited to be here and to be a part of MSU. Oh my gosh, I'm so looking forward to this, because it's also aiding me on my spiritual journey and my spiritual growth as well. So I thank you. I'm so happy that we connected in such a magical way. So I thank you, and I'm happy to be here. But yeah, folks, I'm Tezra Bryant. I'm just a regular chick, who had a spiritual realization. And the spiritual realization was that we are all one. It is oneness, folks. It is oneness. And it's not our fault the way that we live in this paradigm, this patriarchal paradigm. And I also want to say that I don't villainize and I don't victimize anyone. So I just want to just start that off right now. I don't villainize and I don't victimize anyone. Everybody is fulfilling whatever the purpose that they're supposed to be filled. But I am one of the people that is coming to share the absolute truth that we are all one. And that I came up the other day with this, I don't know, this coin of a skin case. You know how a suitcase is? A suitcase is just a thing that holds your belongings, your clothes or your shoes or whatever. It's just something that holds the contents of what you have. Okay, that's what the skin is. So now I refer to it as skin case, because it is just a thing that holds the content of everything, that we all have, right? It's only one race. It's the human race. And we all have the same parts that make up the human. It's just that we have a different case, and that's how it's supposed to be, because it's a reflection of the divine, right? And
Absolutely.
so I'm looking forward to having this conversation and being with you, Rachel, and being with you, David. And yeah, so that's about me in a nutshell, and I'm sure we'll go into more as we go along, but that's it for now.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. And David Williamson, Now, David. Oh, David. I cannot wait for our listeners to hear this. So, this remarkable man had what we call a near death experience. I don't call it that. I'll get to that in a second. Because he didn't have a near death. He fucking died, guys. He died. He was not here. He died, dead, gone. David died, but he died from hate. These are his words. I'm going to let him explain this in a second. Hate killed him because he was actually living in the illusion of race, that there are different races, that we are different and separate from one another. Hate killed him, but he came back. So that near death, I know we all call it near death. I had a near death experience when I was very young because I got close to dying. That is not what David had. David been dead, gone, and had this amazing experience, came back. So, David, can you tell us, how did hate kill you? And what was your experience when you went to, quote unquote, the other side? And what did you come back with?
Yeah, I have to start in my childhood. Already pretty sensitive. Had what people call spiritual gifts and all this stuff at a very young age. Experienced lucid dreams, sleep paralysis, knowing people's feelings and thoughts, knowing when people were lying,
Mm,
um, and remembering past lives that I didn't understand as past lives. I just thought they were just recurring, memories that just happened the exact same way over and over and over. And there's little weird stuff, just those just weird things that just recurred in my mind over and over and over and over. And when I got older, I kind of understood them differently than I did as a child. Um, and I remember at age, I think I might have been 5 or 6, praying to God to take all of that away because
oh,
it didn't really help me. It made me feel like I was very different, and it didn't help me. It made me come across as mischievous, I think, or disrespectful sometimes when I said
Mhm.
things that were based on a knowing that I shouldn't have known, I shouldn't have had. So
yep.
I asked God to not let me know things that I'm not supposed to know.
Mm, mm,
When I was about 5 or 6,
Wow.
and that's how I articulated it. Don't keep me from knowing things that I'm not supposed to know, and stop the sleep paralysis because it scared me not being able to move when I would wake up a lot,
Yeah.
and and so at age 6 I went to a summer camp and I drowned at the summer camp, and that was the first near death experience that I had, and then when I what I was doing was watching the kids play, and they were jumping in the water. They had life jackets on, but my assumption was they couldn't swim the same way I couldn't swim, and they were confident because of the life jacket. So I just put the life jacket on and I just ran and jumped as high as I could into the water. And when I hit the water, I went down. The life jacket stayed at the top of the water,
Ooh.
and I was watching it as it was getting further and further and further away from me. Like I'm supposed to have that on. And I'm going down, and at some point, I realize that I'm not going to be able to hold my breath for much longer, and then I kind of black out, and there's this voice that says that, or as I'm blacking out, I can hear this voice say, "If you can touch the bottom, you can push yourself back up."
Wow.
And I say to the voice, "Well, I'm not. It doesn't seem like I'm going to touch the bottom. I'm just going down." And as soon as I said that, I started floating back up, and
Wow.
as I'm floating back up, I look up, and and I can see at some point I can see light coming from the top of the water, and then I see a splash, and then there's these rings rippling out from the splash that I'm captivated by because it's beautiful, seeing the light coming
mm,
through and the rings radiating from that splash. And I watched that for a while before I reached, for the pole. And then I grabbed the pole and they pulled me out. And I remember coughing a couple times, but I don't remember having my chest pumped or anything like that.
Hmm.
But everybody was hysterical because I called my brother last year and I asked him about this experience because I didn't I remembered it, but I didn't remember it in any traumatic way at all. So I questioned whether or not I drowned or anything like that. I questioned it all. And he said no. He said you were under the water for no less than 3 or 4 minutes. He said
Wow.
everybody thought you were dead. He said they were panicking, people were crying, passing out. Everybody thought you were dead. And people were looking at him. I was 6, so he was 8, and they were like he said, he didn't know what to do, you know, and so it was it happened, you know, and I when he said 3 or 4 minutes, that was significant to me because I was one of those kids who liked to time how long I could hold my breath, and I never
Oh
got,
my goodness.
yeah, I never got to 2 minutes,
Yeah.
you know, so so for him to say I was under the water no less than 3 or 4 minutes was significant to me, you know,
Yep.
so after that experience, a lot of my disposition changed. Like I was a happy kid that was in nature all the time. I loved being in nature. I laughed a lot. Everything was fun for me. Everything was like an adventure. I'd like to dig holes and find
Hmm.
anything, rocks, broken pieces of glass that had color to it. I thought it was a jewel, jewelry, a treasure or something. And
Mhm.
and I kept this stuff in old lunch boxes, you know. And but but after that, my interest in nature and science kind of maybe increased, but I wasn't as outgoing and excited about stuff. I was more serious and anxious. And I think
Mm.
what explains that is what I started. My father was in the military. We went to Germany, which may have triggered some anxiety. We moved to Germany. I was after the summer camp where I drowned, 6 years old, and we moved to Germany, and I started having visions of being in Hiroshima and Nagasaki during the nuclear holocaust there, and it was extremely traumatizing for me. In my mind, I was there, and I would go into these fits where I would just shake and be stiff and just scream, "I don't want to die! I don't want to die! I don't want to die! I don't want to die!" And then I would come out of it after 5 minutes, well, maybe not even five, like 3 to 5 minutes, of
Mhm.
just. And my mom thought that she said there was nothing she could do when I was in those fits to console me, and she said my heart would be beating so hard that she thought it was going to beat out of my chest, like she thought I was going to die, and it scared her. But and then I also was having visions of the future, and the way I described it at age 6 was I saw human roadkill, because roadkill bothered me. Seeing dead animals in the road as a child
Mhm.
really, really bothered me. So it would make sense that I would describe it as human roadkill, and what I would see in these visions is like being in circumstances where I'm with people or above them and watching them, and they could be in a car driving, and there's dead people on both sides of the road, and they're talking about the weather or singing songs on the radio, and there's no concern. Like it seems like it's normal that
Mhm.
that and that that it made me shut down, and
Yep.
then you couple that, because I didn't trust that for one, I didn't trust that humans would not use nuclear weaponry again, and
Mhm.
also the future that I saw with the death. I just thought it was inevitable, so I didn't really care to participate very much in this life. I didn't trust that humans would behave. So
Yeah.
I just didn't. I kind of shut off a little bit, and then also I was in North Carolina, a small town called Yanceyville, and some people are skeptical of this because they think I'm, I guess younger than I am, but I'm almost 50. I'm 48 years old. Um, and even if I was 25 years old, there's been active marches, in this country. You
Yeah.
can say that this the not the original KKK. You can say whatever you want to say, but there were men in my childhood that were dressed in sheets, and they called
Yep.
themselves the Ku Klux Klan, and they
Yep.
marched up and down my street as a child.
Wow.
And my biological grandfather was a sharecropper, and that's not ancient history.
Yeah.
My biological grandfather was a sharecropper. My grandmother told me stories of this as a child, even growing up. And of being on a sharecropper's farm, and how it's half a step out of slavery in term,
Mhm.
and the treatment is bad, and the expectations of the landowner can be, from perverse to, just unrealistic, in terms of the amount of output they may have expected.
Yep.
But um so seeing the KKK, hearing these stories, and I remember like one time in particular being on the side of the road with police blocking black people on the side of the road from the KKK, the Klansmen marching down Main Street in town in Yanceyville, and I saw my parents, my mother screaming and my aunt screaming at them, and I saw the police, their anxiety, their trying to keep us from each other, and I
Yep.
see them in the streets screaming, and I'm looking up at all of these adults doing this, absorbing it, absorbing
Yes.
it, trying to
Yeah.
make sense of it, not necessarily understanding any of it, but
Right.
absorbing it. And
David, how
so
old were you at this point?
like is I think the first probably one I saw may have been 5 before my drowning, but I saw some after my drowning that kind of further made me lose hope in humanity and kind of disconnect, and it and what it made me feel was the rage that I saw my mother and my aunt and other family members feeling. It made me feel that, and then I felt the reaction from the Klansmen, and I was like, okay, well, it's normal. This is what they feel, the
Mm.
same thing towards me.
Yeah.
And so I decided in this world of hate, I'm not going to be a victim. I'm going to hate people. I'm going to hate people better than they hate me. You know,
Yeah.
and if there's somebody going to be around me that hates me, they're going to be the one that feels uncomfortable. My presence, I'm not going to be fearful of their presence. They're going to be scared of me because I'm going to make sure that they are, because that was just the way that I decided to be as a
Yes.
trauma response, and ultimately, to like being afraid of other people because of what I assumed they thought of me.
Absolutely.
And so I went through my life carrying this extremely, volatile, hostile disposition towards mainly white people, but it was really just a general kind of disposition that I carried, and it made me sick. But I never attached the digestive issues, hypertension to my
Yep.
disposition. I never attached it to the emotions that I was feeling, the anger, the hate. I never attached it to, but at some point, I lost my gallbladder, and then probably 2 or 3 years after that, um, I had a heart attack. The heart valve ripped on a super moon, and just
Mm.
recently, the supermoons I'm very sensitive to them, and I've come to find out my family is too, because just this past Hunter's moon, the supermoon that just passed, I got hospitalized, and 3 or 4 of my cousins got hospitalized as well, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's just a sensitivity that I think that some people have to the weather changes, changes, just different changes in the environment. It could simply be health related, hypertension, all that stuff. But it definitely is exacerbated by full moons in my experience from what I've observed.
Hmm.
Because when my heart valve ripped, it was during a full moon, and when I recently got hospitalized, it was during a full moon, and now it's more regulated because I think what I've noticed in my cycles of this is that the way that they were attempting to regulate my pressure wasn't working before, and they listened to me. The doctors listened to me this time, and they seem to have found a way to regulate it, and this cycles don't affect it as much as now, as it did before. But that when I lost my gallbladder, like I said, I was really sick. I was in a lot of pain, and it still didn't connect, my disposition and my physical body, what it was going through. But the heart attack, the valve ripped on February 1st, 2017, and 7 days later I had a heart attack. And
Mm.
but the ripping the valve, it felt like pain in my back and shoulder, so I never connected it to my heart until seven
Wow.
days later when I started feeling stings, like stinging pain in my heart, and I was losing my breath. And that was when I realized, oh, what happened 7 days ago was connected to my heart. It was and it what the sign the medical, what is a dissection. My heart valve ripped, and it ripped into the heart muscle itself. It ripped down into the stem and into the heart.
Wow.
And they had to do a procedure that at that time was only 18 years old. So if it had happened
Oh,
earlier
wow.
Wow.
in my life, there wouldn't even been a procedure. They didn't even have a
Yeah.
procedure to correct that type of rip. So so during that, like I'm 7 days after the rip, I'm leaving work, and I feel it. Like I feel this pain directly in my heart now. So it's not in the shoulder, in the back. It's actually in my heart.
Mhm.
and I'm losing my breath. But I decide that instead of calling 911 at the time, we're gonna ride home and see if I can see if I'm okay, see if it's just something me, I'm just tripping. I ain't and nothing's really wrong. So I get home and I'm still in that disposition. I'm kind of having to breathe here and there to kind of keep my breath. But I make a snack because I'm like, okay,
Huh.
felt crazy when I had my gallbladder stuff going on. There were times when simply not having eaten could cause me to feel a lot of discomfort and stuff. So I was like, okay, let me eat something. I ate something. It's still getting bad. It's like I'm not able to breathe. My heart is stinging now, and I'm like, okay. I call my son's mother's name. She's working from home upstairs, and I call. I tell her I need to go. Trisha, I tell her I need to go to emergency room, and I get there, and well, on the way. I'm losing my breath, and I get there, and I'm pretty much about to pass out. Like I'm losing my breath, but I'm trying. The guy's trying to get me to sign forms, and I kind of lose it on
Oh,
him. Snap on him a little bit, and I remember that because I remember feeling bad and coming back to him after my NDE, after they resuscitated me and apologizing to him, and and he was like, "Oh man, I know you were under duress, and
no.
he didn't, he accepted it, but he was more like, no, it was you didn't need to, but but after I got there and I was upset with him, like almost immediately after I cussed him out, the gurney comes through the door and I get on it, and I would say 20 seconds, I was gone, and
Wow.
I remember turning the corner, seeing the doors to where they were going to be resuscitating me, working on me, and then after they turned the corner and I saw those doors, I was out. So
That's very symbolic.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
That's
yeah,
very symbolic.
yeah,
Go through those doors. You're
yeah,
gonna have a different experience.
yeah. And the thing that I think is important because I passed out before I went through those doors, but when I
Mhm.
woke up, I knew where everything in that room was. So people say you're hallucinating, but I'm like, okay, I didn't know where things were in that room before I died, before I passed out. But when I opened my eyes, I did. But I was unconscious when they pushed me through those doors. I learned and know where everybody was positioned in that room unconscious if it was a hallucination. You understand what I'm saying? Like I learned
Yeah.
about things in real time. Like there was no cessation of consciousness. Once my body stopped working, my awareness continued. And it was no
Mhm.
Yeah.
cessation. There was no cessation of time at all in that. And so I learned continuously, even though my body wasn't working. So
Wow.
So
so
you were
the
observing everything that was happening. You were
everything.
watching everybody in the room.
Yeah. It didn't happen immediately, but it was
Mhm.
like at first I saw just blackness
Mhm.
and then where people were it was like dots of light almost like a nighttime sky and or pixels
Mhm.
static on a TV almost it was
Yes.
just my it was like my senses were um losing their reliability because my body was shutting down, so everything was distorted and weird, sounded like the voices sounded like underwater,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and but then after I was in the room, I my awareness came out of my body, and it was like less than a few seconds after I went into the room, I was out of my body, looking down at everything, and and there was no cessation of the experience. There was no break. It was seamless, and
Yep.
so for me, when people say it's an hallucination, I'm like I just kept learning. I got never I kept learning about what was there. Like I never it was never something fantastical when I was still in that hospital setting. It was just the hospital that I was learning about. It wasn't
Yep.
something that I invented. It was people that I saw that were those same people that I saw when I opened my eyes. It was circumstances, layout was the same when I opened my eyes, but I didn't see that with my eyes. I saw that when I
Yep.
was out of my body.
With your consciousness.
Yeah. So I try to make that very clear to people because the critiques that I get constantly, the haters are gonna hate. You know what they say, huh? But is that it's an hallucination, and it's like I try to make that point for people who assume it's an hallucination, so that they on the record for them to consider as they're considering it an hallucination. You know, you know,
Well, David, let me ask you, did you
yeah.
also like ask the doctors like, "Hey, were you here and that person was over there and that person was over there?"
Mm-mm.
When you Okay.
No,
You
I didn't because I didn't
you
have
don't need
to.
to.
I
You
didn't.
have the
I
knowing.
looked at them. When I
You
opened
have
my
the knowing.
eyes, I looked at them, and they were all exactly where they were when I was above. Like I didn't really have to confirm that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, I never even thought to ask the question because I was watching them from above, and then I was watching them when I came back into my body, and they were all the same people in the same place.
Yep.
There was a woman holding her face in the back left side of the room because she was distraught that I was dying, and that really bothered me because nothing that I was experiencing
Was
was negative. It was all
right.
Yeah.
beautiful. It felt like I woke up for the first time. I was seeing for the first time. Um, it just felt perfect. I wasn't feeling pain. I wasn't feeling confusion, anger. I wasn't feeling anger. you know. So,
Oh, so
so all of this. Go ahead.
you
I'm
had
sorry.
freedom from anger,
Yeah, yeah,
and you started and jump to where you started to experience this existence of oneness, the truth of
yeah,
what we are.
yeah.
How did that come in?
I watched the woman. I was concerned with the woman that was holding her face, and the guy that was holding the defibrillator pads. He was upset that I was dying. He was blaming
Mhm.
himself for putting a lot of weight on himself to save me,
Mm,
and that bothered me. Those two things really bothered me. The other people seemed to be focused on doing their jobs. They really
mhm,
didn't. They weren't distracted by any emotional stuff. They just kind of were focused on trying to get me stabilized. But those two people, extreme emotion, extreme sadness, and and compassion, even, and that I could feel it.
mm,
And I could feel their thoughts. I could feel everything that they were feeling, and I wanted to fix it. So I was trying to figure out how to talk to the woman, for a while. And
ah,
she couldn't hear
Wow.
me, she couldn't see me, but I was talking. I was like, Why are you upset? Like, he's dead, but I'm here. I'm alive. This is a beautiful experience. Like, there's nothing for you to be sad about. There's nothing. I'm not bothered by anything. Like, this process is beautiful. And even when I came out of my body and I started seeing myself and seeing them trying to save me, it was like, he's dead, you used to be there. These, like, phrases that I actually
yeah,
spoke or heard in my mind or my awareness, but it was, he's dead, you used to be there. His body, mind, and ego is dead. And then I asked, and it's like I'm talking to myself because the voice sounded very like much like my voice. And I said, well, what am I? What remains? And the words flooded in all together, and it was like light, love, energy, awareness, consciousness, all at the same time. And I
yep.
understood it. I understood it, and soul and spirit was in there as well. Um, and then after that, the phrase that I heard was, "You killed yourself with your personality." Yeah.
Ooh.
And it was clear to me, like, that was very clear to me because I was angry, I was depressed, I was miserable, sad. I hated, I was in a bad state, and I
Mhm,
still tried. Like, in hindsight, I give myself a lot of credit for still trying. Like, I got a master's degree, from Georgia Tech. I got an undergraduate degree from Florida A&M University, and I was not in a state to where it seems likely that would have been easy for me. Like, my mind was so, you know, I had created so many stories and narratives in my mind about
Mhm.
what I was doing here and what my job was here,
yeah,
that I don't even understand how I was able to get any degrees in college or even function here because
yeah,
of that. And it was hard. I would go to work after I had my gallbladder removed. I realized that when I went to work, the stitches were bleeding through my shirt, but when I was at home, nothing was happening. So I took my blood pressure monitor to work. And what I noticed is that I would leave home and my blood pressure would be normal. And I would get to work and it would be 220 over 125.
Oh,
Every
yeah,
time I walked through the door, it just shot through
mm,
the roof.
yep,
And so I started realizing that, and of course, still in my mind, it was like, I hate white people so much that it's making me sick. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I was like, this is
yeah,
crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I started to realize that it was that, my mind that was doing it.
yeah.
And and I still didn't change. Like, it took the heart attack a couple years later for it to just really sit in that I was killing myself. And but when I looked up, like, I watched a woman for a while, and then I looked up, and then I was in the void. I was in space,
Mm,
and in the void, and in the void, people call it the void. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of phrases from ancient languages,
yeah,
but it was a black hole, is what it seemed to be. And from looking at it, it looked like a black hole. It was darker than
yep,
space, and space was black, but this was blacker. This
yeah,
area was blacker, and when I was in this space, it felt like love. It felt like everything, every idea, every possibility was there. But when I focused my attention, like I could see stuff in my periphery, but when I focused my attention on it, it would disappear like smoke. Like it was nothing. It was just an idea that was possible, not necessarily something that was physical or formulated.
Yeah.
And none of that disturbed me, but there are people who I've heard describe almost that to a T. And they say that it was ghosts and it scared them. Like they describe it in scary ways. And
Yeah.
I'm like it seemed to me like nothing was coming at me in an aggressive or threatening way.
Yeah.
It was just there. So any story that I would have to come up with of it being dangerous would be based on just my anxiety of that type of circumstance. But there was no aggression, so I didn't feel afraid in the void. It just felt like everything was there. Everything was there. Um, I my most of my experience is in or around the void. I seem to feel like that was like home, or I was comfortable there. It was like mother. I didn't really want to leave
Yeah.
it. It felt comfortable, and I didn't really want to leave it. So when I came out of the void, I was still looking into the void for a while, and every thought that I had, if there was any confusion, instant clarification just by looking at
Mm.
movement in the void, and it would just be swirls and no images, no words, no nothing, just a swirl. And I knew,
Just energies.
yeah, I knew
Yeah.
exactly what, before I could even fully articulate the confusion, the clarity was there.
Yep.
So
Beautiful.
yeah, if there was a person I missed or something, like somebody asked me the question about missing people, and I was like, well, if there was a thought of missing someone, the satisfaction of having them around you would be felt instantly. Like
Mm.
there was no absence of no feeling of any type of absence at
Yes.
all. You know, and
Which is the oneness.
yes,
Yeah, I was
that's
gonna
it,
That's
say
the
that.
energy of
that's it.
oneness.
Part of the
Yeah.
whole. Yep.
Yeah, because people speak about what we miss or what we lose when we leave this place, and we don't lose anything.
Anything.
We don't lose anything. We merge with it,
Yeah.
and we become clear that like the love that everybody. Because I've listened to and watched a lot of NDE accounts at this point, and everybody describes this love,
Yep.
and this place feels like love. You feel like love. You feel like a part of it. And there are things that I seldom share because people sensationalize certain ideas. But there was even an idea or a thought that this was created, and this was still being it's still a unified. Um, um, the only difference that I can see in NDEs is what was our attention on in this life. You know, if
Yeah.
our attention was if we
Yeah.
were devout Christians for 75 years and then we leave here, you're going to have the artifacts of that attention, of your attention being focused there for 75 years present. And you're going to navigate those things and ideas as you leave this realm. But once you leave this realm, those ideas have no more value. They don't. And at some point, I stopped even remembering that I was David. I stopped having a personal history. Once I came out of the void, it was all I seemed to be, and this is to me a very useful thing for other people. So I say it. But the best word to describe what I appeared to be was attention, just
Yes.
attention.
I love
You
it.
know, and I do like awareness, but attention seems to be more active, you know, and it's what you create your experience with, is
Yes.
your attention. So everywhere my attention focused, I looked when I first came out of the void. I kept looking into the void for a while. I didn't really move from it, didn't want to move from it. And then I looked up around and I saw this star forming region in front of me, and it was beautiful. Like cotton candy colors, the pink, the blue, the white
Mhm.
clouds, and then these glowing forming stars, like baby stars. And I remember the thought that I heard, the words that I said as I saw it. It was, oh, so this is where stars are born. I was
Oh,
gonna,
it's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, and I didn't get close to the forming stars. I kind of just watched them because it felt sacred, like it felt like it was a place where I
Oh,
shouldn't. And but I saw the light, what people call the light. It felt like love. It was beautiful. It was very far away from me. Um, so I didn't have much of an experience where I wanted to go there. I didn't desire to go there. I kind of was just enamored with being in this space and feeling all this
yeah.
love and the things that I could see right around me, and I remember looking at um, what appeared to be just a floating rock, an asteroid, go by, and I was like, ah, and I shot to the asteroid and shot to the other side of it, and understood it. It was an asteroid, and or I didn't use the word asteroid in that state, but when I came back, I understood that that was an asteroid.
Yep.
Um, it had a band around it in the middle part of it, and recently the Bennu asteroid that goes between, I think, Earth and the moon, that close, I believe, to this planet, passed by, you know, and I looked at pictures of it, and it has a band around it, the same way that this
Wow.
band that I saw in this asteroid. And even the black hole, I feel like it's the black hole. It's Sagittarius A. Like, I really feel like that black hole that I came out of is the black hole at the center of the Milky Way galaxy. Um, the star
And all
forming.
that, your experiences with all of that, you were able to bring back with you. It
Yeah,
transformed. It's different. So what is different now? Because this just ties into, your experience coming back as a being that is a lot closer to oneness than you were prior to this, right?
yeah,
And I want to point this out because this is part of the illusion of race. When we live in illusion, we then create the reality based on what we believe.
yeah,
And a lot of people out there like, change your beliefs, change your beliefs. I'm here to tell you, go fuck your beliefs. The fact that you have any beliefs is your fucking problem to begin with. Because when you have beliefs, you believe in whatever somebody's programmed you or brainwashed you to believe in, like we're separate, like you're
yeah,
inferior and I'm superior, or vice versa. Those are all beliefs. Beliefs fuck everybody up. We should not exist in beliefs. Beliefs come from mind. They come from programming. They come from inequality programming. They come from lies and bullshit that are taught to us, like we are all different races because we have different shades
yeah,
of our, what I call our meat suit. Tezra was coming up with your
The
names
skin
for it.
case.
Yep, the skin case. I usually call it our meat suits because this
yeah,
is temporary, right? So
yeah,
let's dive into that a little bit. And I
yeah,
would love to hear too, Tezra, the illusion of race. We are one race, and even this one race that we are, the human race, is only temporary in this short-term existence. The all of everything, the creator of all, is what each and every one of us is. We are a fractal of that.
Yes.
So when we function in belief only, what other unconscious, unawakened people that don't function in oneness have taught us, I don't care if it's your damn religion, I don't care if it's your parents and your family and your neighborhood and your whatever. This is the crap we're taught. And then we live out that reality, and the evidence is always going to mirror back to us that we're right.
Yep. Yep.
Right? It's
Yeah.
always going to mirror back what we believe. Stop believing and instead function in a level of divine truth, which is we are one. So
Yes.
talk more about that, Tezra, if you will.
Yes. Well, no, and you hit on a very good point with, we are all one, we are all connected. And there was something that I wanted to say that you had said that triggered a really good thought for me, but it escapes me right now. Hopefully it'll come back to me. So I'm just going to release it and trusting and knowing that it's going to come back to me. But being brought up and being indoctrinated, right,
Yep.
in the
Yep.
beliefs.
Yep.
And, I belong to this, you belong to that. And the thing about it is the one institution that is supposed to teach and symbolize and be the example of that love of God is the very same institution that has separated and divided us.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So it's like when coming into oneness and coming into the knowledge of self, the capital S, which is what David had experienced after, we leave all of this, we don't stop existing, as David has so eloquently and beautifully shared. We don't stop existing. And what I wanted to ask David really quickly is that when you came back and you saw your first white person, what was your immediate reaction to that?
Great question.
yeah. It was just no tension. I didn't attach them to a story where they automatically had to hate me. You know, there was no tension.
Amazing.
It was just a human being that is he at work and he's paying bills. He probably has children that he cares about, and I now see that that's probably 80% of humanity, 90% of humanity is living their life, paying their bills, have children that they care about that they want to leave something to, and any idea to me that creates a ratio where there's 75%, 80% derelicts or 50% insane derelicts, that's somebody's anxiety and storytelling. You know, that's creating that because in most of my experience, even when I was full of hate, the most people that you pass and meet in the street don't care nothing about that. They're just
Hmm.
living their life and they're going to and from, to and fro about their day, and they don't really care about how I feel inside. They're not attached to my story. I attach them to that story. That's
Mm.
how that becomes real. Is exactly what Rachel, you're saying is that our once the more trauma, the more narratives, the more biases, the more experiences, even sometimes even benign experiences shape our perspectives.
Yep.
But the more weight we place on how personal the story that this machine creates from it just absorbing the information that it's around,
Yep.
the more emotion and bias that we place on that data that this machine picks up, and that comes from trauma usually, or just storytelling from old trauma narratives being spread,
Hmm.
forward.
Hmm.
Um, you don't see reality any other way. I saw myself almost literally as like a black savior here to fix the problems that black people face, and it was up to me to
Yep,
do it. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
the amount of
yep.
weight that
What a
puts on
weight on your
you,
shoulders with that. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
it
That's the
makes you
burden of the
crazy.
world
It
on
makes
one
you
Yep.
person.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was willing to do anything in my mind and in the world that I imagined. I was a warrior, willing to do anything,
Mm.
and it's a lot of but at the end of the day, when your attention is so much on that 24 hours a day, but you're actually what you're doing in reality is the rat race, stress, sitting and ruminating on a whole bunch of negative thoughts and ideation, making
Yep.
yourself
Yep.
sick. Like you don't
Yep.
really do anything where you actually get to release the energy that's associated with all these negative
Mhm.
thoughts. You don't
Mhm.
And
do anything.
still living in that separation consciousness, us
Yeah,
against them.
yeah,
Mhm.
It's still
yeah.
an us against them. Hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, the bulk of the people that I sat with when I was in my angriest state and talked with and philosophized with, they weren't doing anything. It's just a
Yeah.
angry rhetoric, it's an angry orientation, it's angry language, it's a jargon that you learn to
Yep.
describe reality that is consistent with other people in that same orientation, but it's not. There's no
Yeah.
action.
Hmm.
Yeah. And all the while you're sitting in that state, we actually believe that we are actually giving it to that person, right? We're actually believing that we are giving it to the white man because of all of
Yeah,
this vitriol that we are spewing. And
yeah,
like you said, but we're not doing anything with it. So guess what? The energy has to do something. It has to
yeah,
move somewhere.
yeah,
And so it does all the damage right there in the
yeah,
one
Yep.
vessel.
Yep.
yeah.
And that other person is unaffected. They're in fact are clueless.
Yeah, they don't know that you hate them that much.
Yeah.
They might feel uncomfortable, and if they have any say so in your advancement in a job, they will probably always say no because there's nothing in their spirit, there's nothing in their body awareness that would say, "I want this person
To
to
be
be
around. Yep.
close to me." Yeah,
Yep. That's
That's
right.
so
yeah,
important
That's
because
right.
that's the
yeah,
level of energetics
Yep.
that we teach here at
yeah,
Masters of Self University, that the energetics is what's real. That always is there, whether people are consciously aware of it, awakened enough or not to know what they feel. They can feel your hate. I don't care what skin tone you are,
yeah.
no matter who you are, where you are, what we're
Feel your
talking about.
thoughts. Your
Yes.
thoughts influence the outcome. Far,
Yes.
Right, but
far.
then what we wanna say is, "Oh, I didn't get that promotion because
He was
what?
racist.
There's
You know.
racist."
Yeah.
Exactly,
And I did
exactly.
that. I did that often. I would literally go into the interview and a white guy would come in the interview me and I'm like,
Already knowing.
I hate this, man. I hate it. I hate him. I know he hates me. I know it
Yep,
ain't gonna work out. I know it ain't, I'm not gonna get the job no matter what I say. And do a great interview, you know, and then not get the job. And I'm
it's
saying he's the
right,
only
and it's
reason
going
is
back to
because
what
he's
Rachel
racist.
says.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that
Yeah.
energetics.
Yeah, I
It's the
already
energetics.
decided that I wasn't going to get the
Yep,
job. I
right,
already decided I wasn't going to get the job, and then I blamed racism and blamed him.
And
right.
that I
you know.
love this because this is
Yeah,
how we create our realities. And just because it's your
Mhm.
reality doesn't mean it's divinely real.
That's right. Or the
The
divine truth.
divine, the
yeah,
divine truth, what's actually
yeah,
real is
Yep.
none of that exists in oneness,
That's right.
yeah,
but it doesn't, we are a fractal of the source creator. We're a fractal of that.
yeah,
That is what we are incarnated into a human form. So we
Mhm.
can create whatever reality we want to.
yeah,
And when other things around us, if other things around us are evil and hateful and terrible, and there's your experiences, David, of seeing all this hate, all this separation, the police holding you back and your family members back from the KKK marching down the street. All of those experiences have been these are created realities from other people who come from separation and hate and trauma and all the things.
yeah,
They're creating this. We grow up, we actually have a choice. Ooh, this all sucked. Do I want to continue to create a reality like this where I'm on one side, you're on the other, we fucking hate each other and blah, blah, blah?
yeah,
Do I want to continue to create that? Or do I unplug from it, heal my own traumas from the things I have experienced, heal my generational traumas that are inside my body, in my DNA,
yeah,
and connect to the power that I am, elevate my consciousness so I can create a different reality
yeah.
that can be one of peace and harmony and oneness and love.
Mm,
Yeah. And in doing that, it's like that is where you get a chance to taste the sweet nectar of life.
yeah,
Yes,
Right?
exactly.
Living
yeah,
on that level, living in that frequency, that you get a chance to be truly liberated and seeing that you can live a buoyant life in this physical dense incarnation
Yes.
because
yeah,
you are now sitting in the driver's seat of your own life. You are harnessing your own power. And baby, let me tell you something. When you begin to harness your own power, you are unfuckwithable. Like
That's it.
you are
yeah,
unstoppable.
That's it.
yeah,
So there is no concept of all of these other divisions and oh, this person, I can't get to that point where I want to get in my life because this person is stopping me. No, that does not exist when you
100%.
tap into your power. And Rachel, I wanted to say something when you were talking, and when you said something, it popped in my head that God does not make us a liar. I always say that. So whatever you refer to, that which cannot be named, supreme source, intelligent source, infinite source, whatever you want to call it will not make you a liar.
yeah,
It loves us so much that it will not make you a liar. So if you're going around and you're saying to yourself, David, I'm not going to get this job because this person hates me. This person is sizing me up because I'm black or this is what. And you are the perfect person for the job. You are the most adroit, the high acumen person for this job. But yet and still, because you are carrying that thought, you are on this frequency. The universe will not make you a liar. So guess what? You're going to have the vibrational match to make that true for you.
yeah,
Yeah,
And that is
yeah,
absolutely.
how this game is ran.
yeah.
Yes.
And outside of my body, and I think that that's what you're saying. What both of you are saying is where that became clear to me is when I was outside of my body, all I appeared to be was attention, and everywhere my
Mm.
attention was focused, that's where my experience moved to.
Yes.
Yes.
You
Yep.
know, so
That's quantum physics. That's
when I
quantum
came back to my
physics.
body, I realized that has been the same thing that has been happening. My
Yes.
attention is on this hate. My attention is on this anger. My attention
Mm.
is on all of these
Yep.
negative things. So when I go out in reality, that's all I see. You know,
Yes.
that's all I see. And
That's
it
what
made
you
me,
experience.
yeah, it made me miserable. So when I stopped seeing it, when I came back, I didn't have any nervous system reactions to any of the ideology, identity stuff. Just kind of, I had to almost discover that I didn't have these responses anymore. And it, because I would go into situations that I had been in
Right.
before
Right.
prior, and I was
Beautiful.
like,
Wait a minute.
This doesn't bother
And
me
I'm
anymore.
responding like, wait,
like
where's that response at?
I went to the first job that I got because I had to go back to work, pretty fast, and I was still messed up, healing,
Mm.
but I had to go back to work. But the first job that I got, I noticed that I was way more effective than I had ever been.
Hmm.
I wasn't angry at people. Ironically, wherever I sat, because it was a really modern kind of work environment. It was almost like just a coffee shop where you just sat wherever you sat when you came in. But somehow every day I sat beside a guy who was angry at the world, black guy that was angry at the world. And I would listen
Of
to him, and
course.
I would listen to the things that he was saying, and I was like, I understand that. Like but it doesn't
That
make me
was it.
mad. It doesn't make me mad anymore. What it
Mhm.
makes me feel is a responsibility to fix problems. If there are
Ooh,
problems that disproportionately affect people who look like me, it doesn't matter that they look like me. There's a problem to fix. I can fix it. You
I
understand?
love this.
And it doesn't now. I'm not angry about it. Now I can actually think more rationally without the
Yes.
emotion, without the
Yes.
bias, without these stories that I've told myself
Yep.
that aren't true. That actually make me more less effective at addressing the issues.
Beautiful.
That's right.
You know,
That's right. And that's
yeah,
why legacy media pushes all of these messages, all of these narratives that keep us in this fit of emotion because they know that that is where the powerless lives.
yeah,
Yes.
The powerless lives in emotion.
Yep.
So therefore, they got to keep feeding us all of these things, all these sensationalized, topics and headlines so that we can stay in a fit of, upsetness, pissed off, angry,
yeah,
mad, hatred because then we are being controlled. That is how we are controlled.
That's part of
yeah,
the divide and conquer.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, and just even if you just consider how many rational conversations you've had with a triggered person,
Exactly.
not many, right? But
Right.
and people that are perpetually triggered, like I was perpetually triggered. Like I wasn't
Mhm,
having rational conversations with people who differed, whose worldview differed from mine.
mhm.
Because if your worldview differed from mine, in my mind, you were potentially violent. You were potentially dangerous to me,
Mm,
Mm,
and
you're a
and I
threat.
yeah,
yeah, you're a
yeah.
threat.
But after when I returned, what I view even words, language as is a gift from life. Like life is the miracle that happens here. We don't understand it really. It just kind of emerged from somewhere. Big Bang, we can call it whatever we want to.
Mm,
However we talk about it, it's still a
Mhm.
theory, but it's here, and it's unique. This is a unique reality that we are existing in. Um, one of the gifts that came from it is these bodies that we exist in to allow us to see and feel and have
Mhm.
emotions, even to
Yep.
learn from emotions,
Yep.
and but another thing is words and storytelling, but it's a gift that came from life. We weaponize this gift
yes,
and take life.
yes,
Like to me, that's the first, like that's the original sin, is the use of storytelling uh, to take life. The use of a gift that life granted you to kill life it doesn't make sense to me anymore. There's no word, there's no story, there's no ideology that I can espouse that's more important than the soul that is in front of me that is considering it.
Mm.
If the
yeah.
body is confused about something, I know the story as to why this body is confused about it. I lived that, you know.
Yep.
Mhm.
But if I want to kill that body, I also know the stories from at least 12,500 years ago that are recycled of what
Yes.
happens when you try to kill to change things.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't work. You can't
Right.
Yeah.
kill to stabilize society. You can't
Right.
kill to make peace. It
Right.
does not work.
Right.
And we have
Beautiful.
12,500 years of history to show us that it doesn't work. And when you look at our history of interaction with each other, you see that every group, every race has done bad, has
Yep.
behaved
Yep.
badly. But
Yep.
if you only look at history from the past 400 years, you will turn this white man into this unique demon,
Right.
because
Yep.
he's been cutting up lately.
Yeah,
But
that's
but
for sure.
everybody in the when you look at the story in its entirety, and you also look at history as what it's supposed to be, is inquiry. I don't go back to history questions. I learn from history now without my bias. I used to learn from history just to confirm what
David,
I
can you
already thought.
I'm sorry, can you
You
go
know,
back? Because I don't know if my internet glitched out, but I wanted to hear what you were saying. When you go back, you were talking about the history. When you go back in history, can you start there again?
yeah, you just see that all groups of people from all lands have engaged in bad behavior.
Mhm.
Yes.
And then if you consider
Yes.
that in its entirety versus looking at just the last 400 years, you will not be able to make up a story that makes white
That's
people
right.
uniquely evil because
That's right.
there was entire cities being pillaged, women and children being raped and trafficked in
Yep.
ancient Egypt.
Yep.
You know? And
Yes.
if we can ignore that, if we want to, and just say, okay, yeah, we were just playing our little games with each other, whatever. But this thing that they're doing is unique, and
Exactly.
I don't
Right.
really know how unique it is. It's
Right.
all insidious. If you read the accounts of some of the wars that took place in ancient settings, uh, where some, especially African-centered scholars, would say no white people were there.
Mhm.
There was still killing there, raping there. There was still
Mhm.
Yep.
cities being pillaged there, and this is not
And it was still slave trade there.
a lot of the stuff that we uniquely, turn white people into pariahs for existed in cultures where they didn't exist.
Yep.
So it just made me look at all of this differently. It made me look at the state that you are in to do that. Like,
Yeah.
and you observe history and where this stuff starts beginning. It starts beginning in our storytelling. Um,
Mhm.
Bad behavior, people getting exiled, making up stories about why they were exiled that turned them still
Yeah.
into good people. Now there's us and them narratives that didn't exist
Yes.
before. They
Yep.
didn't exist before. These us and them good evil narratives did not exist before the bad storytelling and exiles and separations started happening. And then you can look at history for this. This is not something that it's not belief. One
There
thing
you
that I'll
go.
say about belief is that it's the lowest form of knowing, and it's usually emotionally based and narrative based.
Yeah.
But I relied on it for 34 years, and it can be, you can have good beliefs that make you more responsible and hopeful, or you can have beliefs that make you more anxious and fearful. And for me, there's no story that I'm going to tell that is going to inspire fear and anxiety. So for me, belief in the storytelling that we engage in is a given. We're going to do it, but make it good storytelling that doesn't inspire fear and anxiety or in separation. Because for me, that storytelling is a gift from God, the system itself that we emerge from, whatever you want to call it. And it shouldn't be weaponized against each other. We should use these words and these stories to unify us.
Unify.
Yes, and that's exactly
Yeah.
where I was going to spin it to. We can now use these stories to bring about the togetherness, right? To bring
Yeah.
about the absolute truth and reality. Because, when you think about oneness, we have demonstrations of oneness. We see it all the time. And let's say that when there is tragedy that is happening, right? Let's take 911. How unified did this country become on that day on 9/12?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
9/12 was the most unifying day in this country. It did not matter what your meat suit was, what your skin case, what the hue of your skin tone was, how much melanin you had in your skin. It did not matter, because when it comes down to it, the human how the human being is programmed is to be there for one another. That is the divine program of the human. That is why, if there is, God forbid, a baby trapped under a car, nobody is stopping to say, hey, before you help me get my baby out from under here, what political party do you belong to? Which religion are you? You know what? Nobody stops to ask that,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
because that is oneness, where it does not matter.
Yeah.
But the programming, the conditioning, the
Yes.
coding,
That's
that
it.
is what, and they want us to live in that world. That is why we're constantly being pummeled with all of this information and all of
Yeah.
these. But if we were to stop and just think, just apply a little bit of what I call critical thinking, just hold off, the outside interferences,
Yep.
and just think about it. Just stop and think about it. Like, if I was actually drowning, would I care about the shade of the hand that's coming to help me? Like, will I really, really care? Like,
That's it.
that's absolute truth. That's divine truth.
And that is the deepest essence, our divine truth, what we actually are, where we come from, what we're all made of, which is oneness consciousness, right? That source that we're a fractal of. That shows during those, terrible times, the
Yes.
tragedies on the planet. Now, what also shows a mere reflection of what our level of consciousness is as a collective, that we still need tragedy, destruction,
Yes.
horror, war, terrible, horrific instances of
Yep.
this person murdering that person. And there, I mean, come on. that is a reflection of our level of consciousness, that we need trauma in order to wake up from the slumber, the illusion,
right.
Yeah.
which are
That's right.
the false realities that we create to experience, because we have
That's
the
right.
divine power to create whatever the fuck we want to. Hello.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
People need to realize what we each are, a fractal of source energy.
Yeah.
And that means we can create and put our attention to anything that we want to, because we have free will choice. And then those are the experiences that we are going to have. Or we could realize all of this, start to raise our level of consciousness, and no longer need tragedy, destruction, trafficking, racism, all of it. We don't have to have that to wake up and realize what we are. We could just wake up and realize what we are.
Yeah.
Do the deep inner work required to wake up, evolve. That's an energetic process. It's not just a thinking mind process. If you're in your mind, you're not evolving. Sorry, that you're relying on beliefs. You wake up for real. You realize exactly what you are at an energetic level, that you can create your own reality energetically. And by the way, Masters of Self University has all the classes that you need to learn exactly how to do this.
There we
quantum
go.
Physics level,
Yes.
because this is what we teach.
Yes.
We have the classes to teach you how to do this, and we unite together in oneness to teach these classes, by the way.
Because
So, but remembering that that's what we are, if we wake up and realize that, we then unite together and start to create the reality that is then a mirror reflection of our oneness. Oneness doesn't exist by myself.
Yeah.
It's us coming together.
Yep.
And as a reflection of us coming together in oneness and waking up for real and raising our level of consciousness.
Right.
Yeah.
Then
The oneness is the effort of the
reflects
many.
that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think
And
a
I
big
think-
thing. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, David.
No, I was just gonna say back to history is like going back in history with an inquiring mind versus going back in history and basically taking our ideologies and perspectives and putting them
Yes.
on history.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
because if you because then you do the flip side. You take the narratives from history and you put them on current contemporary reality as well.
Yep.
So ideas like an apocalypse, like just because it was talked about in history doesn't mean that that's a script that we have to read. There's
Yeah.
nothing from the historical record that we can inquire about because it's been documented. There's in papyruses, it's in all kinds of scrolls, it's written on walls. They left us a pretty good record of what they've done. So we don't have to make up stories. But we
Yeah.
can look at these stories and decide if they are telling us stories of a downfall of an entire community. That's a script that we don't have to read.
Yes.
That's a lesson learned, and
Yes.
the lessons are so repetitive that why haven't we learned them?
Yeah.
These ideologies, all of this
Mm.
tribal banter, all
Yep.
of this, science has taught us that race, skin color, hair color makes up 0.0001% of the human genome. It's scientifically insignificant, but it's
Yes.
socially
Yes.
a huge variable in society, and it's
Say that
ridiculous.
again, David.
Thank you for
please.
bringing that up, David,
It's
because
scientifically insignificant.
thank you. Yes, because
Yeah.
I call it the MMCR, the man-made construct of race. It is not
Yeah.
supported by science. It's not supported by spirituality. And those are the two biggest, components of life. And it's not supported by either one of those.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, too. You hear us always saying, we got to make it better for the next generation. We got to make it better for our children. And not realizing that we are still fucking it up for every generation that's coming after us, because we don't want to do the work ourselves in order
There
to
you
become whole, in order to recognize and tap into our own inner divinity, which is
Yeah.
a power. And then we can start teaching the divinity to our children from that perspective. And what we think we're doing is the hatred that we're being taught to have and to hold for one another, especially in I'm going to say, especially in the melanated community, that, we are teaching our kids that, oh, you are a target. You have to be careful. And then they go out into the world with that energy on them. And then the universe does not make you a liar. So we have to be very careful of how we are setting up for the generation to come after us. We have to understand that we have to empower them.
Mhm.
And Rachel, like you were saying, is that you can do anything that you all the power is within you.
Yes.
I don't mean to sound like, which character was that? from Star, which all a little Yoda.
Yoda, yeah.
Oh, Yoda.
The Force.
I don't mean to sound like little Yoda,
The
Yeah.
force
but
is
it
within.
really is. And we have to be very careful when we are talking about raising the next generation. Because right now, the only thing that we are doing is recycling this same trauma. We're
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
recycling this
That's it.
limited ideology about ourselves and being stuck into this box, into this label. That's all that we are recycling.
Yeah. That's it. And you can look at it like I'm an IT guy by profession. That's what I have no connection personality wise at all to it anymore. I'm really like I got laid off recently actually. Just a restructuring and I was just a
Yes,
casualty of it.
exciting
And
time.
it's exciting, you know.
Yeah,
Like I'm
it is.
like
I
what's
love
going to
that.
happen? What is the world going to present to me
Yes,
next? Like what am I
yes.
going to experience
How
next?
good can it get now?
Congratulations.
Yeah,
It's
and
yep,
I've never felt that way after being laid off before
yep.
ever. It's so exciting to me to know that IT was not even a part. Like I don't, there's nothing in me that feels any real need to go learn IT anymore. Like I don't, but I know it well enough to go get IT jobs. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? So
Yep.
Mhm.
if it turns out that I end up having to go get another IT job before I'm able to pivot into something else, that's fine. But I know that the pivot is coming
Yes.
because I'm just not attached to the work. I'm not, you know.
Mm.
So one thing I learned in IT, one of the first classes was that bad software can break good hardware.
Oh,
And
I love
Oh,
it.
yeah, and that's
yeah.
what a
Yep.
Let me
virus.
wrote that down before I write it down again, though.
Yeah, but that's what a virus is. It's a virus. It can one way a virus can work is to send an unmanageable number of requests to your processor into where it literally burns out.
Yeah.
It literally burns out, you know. And that's the same thing that we do here as human beings is that we don't choose well. We
Yeah.
seem to want to sometimes it's like an insatiable thing, like an insatiability, like wetico, like the Native Americans spoke about, you know. It's an
Mm,
insatiability where we don't have it's never enough. Enough is never enough.
yeah.
And but if
Yep.
you focus on one idea, one goal at a time, you get everything that you want here. If you allow the infinitude of ideas that exist here to distract you and make you go crazy and here, there, everywhere, you won't do anything here. You
Yeah.
will be a leaf blowing in the wind,
Yeah.
wondering why you've never created anything.
Mm,
You've
Yes.
never established anything for yourself or your family, or because you've entertained all of the possibility or tried to entertain, which is impossible, all of the
Yep.
possibility that exists here. And look at the people who are capable of actually having an infinitude of experiences, and they're oftentimes miserable people who are often trying to push the barrier of experience. Like it has to be a more. They're so bored because they've done everything that
Mhm.
now they're looking to do these extreme things that are sometimes harmful to other human beings, just out of boredom.
yeah, just out of
You
yeah,
know,
Yeah.
just
yep,
out of boredom
yep,
because they've done everything else.
yep.
So our attention and the capacity of what a personality, a mind, even um, can entertain is limited, you know. And when you give your attention to everything that you're told, our phones tell us that we're supposed to have 50% of our attention in Gaza right now. 50%.
Ooh.
50% of it should be on this election right now. But where's the rest? What do you get to do? What do you get to choose? How do
I
you get
love
to
it.
choose
Right.
for yourself? If
Yep.
people around you are telling you, asking you, what's your position on this? You have to have a
Oh,
position.
yeah.
No, I have
No.
to use my
I
attention to
know.
create the
That's
experience that
right.
I want to have here.
That's right.
Yes.
You know, I
And
don't
you
have
don't get
to
to dictate that. Yeah, that's
at
taking your
all,
power back. That's
at
taking your
all.
power back. So
Exactly.
when you say the bad
Yeah,
software can break good hardware, I think that's a great analogy for thoughts and how thoughts
yeah.
can affect our
And we
physical
share
body.
these with our children. We
Yes,
Yes.
share we
exactly.
share this
Exactly.
what we think is effective
Yep.
software because we had to deal with it. We had to run with this bad software,
Yep.
Yep.
old antiquated software, and we don't update this old software and we just give it to our children. They run on this old software. And what I have to do oftentimes is to what is the version of software of the person that I'm talking to? If it's an old version, then I can go back. I know that version. I can go back and we can
Mhm.
talk on that level, or I can choose not to talk if there's no point in communicating because this person's triggered and they're running on old software,
Hmm.
there's no point. There's no
Yeah.
point in
Yep.
talking. You know, it just becomes either fun or annoying. You know,
Right.
yeah, it's
And
not gonna.
that's the entanglement That's the energetic entanglement of now I am connecting to that type of reality, and then you see it show up in your own because you're
Yeah.
choosing to bring your attention there
Yeah.
instead of, oh, this is uncomfortable, this is hateful, this is whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
This is not loving, it's not divine, and it isn't about judging the person. It's observing where that person functioned from and then saying, I choose to be different because that person, with that, whether they realize it or not, they're choosing suffering. I don't choose suffering for myself.
No.
I choose to rise above that, not judge you where you are, but I'm not going to play with you down there. I don't need to be in suffering. I can choose energetically to create a different reality. And you, by the way, you have an invitation to join me over
That's
here
right.
in this
That's right.
vibrational frequency, because
Right.
I come from oneness. I love all. I am all. I am you and you are me. You can come play in this
Yes.
beautiful divine reality over
Yes.
here if you want to. I am the way of honoring. I honor your choice to not, but
Yeah.
I also honor my choice to not go where you are and suffer where you're suffering.
Right.
I don't choose
Yeah.
suffering for myself anymore. And
That's
we
right.
don't realize we actually have the power of choice. But I will say this, we have been indoctrinated and brainwashed and mind controlled. So I am not dismissing people's traumas or personal experiences when it comes to their lives. When I say it's a choice, I'm not
Yeah.
minimizing what that means. There is a lot to me saying it's a choice. We don't know energetically how to choose differently. We don't.
Yeah.
That's the mind control,
Yeah.
the brainwashing. We don't know how to choose differently. So I want to honor that for a moment,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
And we
it does
start
boil
choosing
down.
the moment we're born, and we're
We
giving
do.
choices. We're given choices, and we start
Yes.
choosing the moment we're born. And that creates a huge amount of momentum that's difficult
Yes.
to undo if the choices
Exactly.
are not,
In alignment
choices.
with divinity.
Exactly. Exactly. You know.
And that's, so saying that is just to point out to listeners that it's just literally as simple as you can choose differently, but that choosing differently, you have to choose to go through the evolution of healing, awakening, learning what this means on an energetic level. You have to literally be willing to learn to become somebody different, because only someone different gets to experience different things.
That's right.
If you
And
stay as the old you don't get to experience all the new beautiful blissful things that exist for you to
that's
experience while
right.
you're here.
Yeah.
hmm And that's why I'm so excited for the students who attend MSU, because let me tell you, folks, whoever is going to attend the university and take these courses, you are the individual who is ready to realize your power
Yes.
and to walk this earth in that power. And when you are walking in that power, you get to really begin to play with life, because as Rachel and David were talking about the energetics, it's like you understand now that you are the energy that can shift any room that you go into.
Yes. Yes.
And to have that
100%.
type of power and influence, like that's what we are here to do. So, for anybody who is ready to tap into that phase and level of this physical incarnation, then that way you can start to change the lives of the people, the little ones that are coming up behind you, to raise them
Yes.
up to be powerful badasses, to be spiritual badasses, to be spiritual gangsters.
Yes.
Then this is what we are here for.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. And this is our metaphysical university. So, Masters of Self University, if you're interested in looking at all the different metaphysical studies that we offer in courses like The Illusion of Race, it's one of many, then go to mastersofselfuniversity.com, check us out, enroll as a student, and just talk to one of our admissions counselors, and they'll tell you all about the classes that we offer. And for everybody who has stayed this long and listened, I want to thank you for listening to these two remarkable, beautiful, divine souls. It is such an honor to have you here with me sharing this space, David and Tezra. You are just amazing beings. And I feel like one of the luckiest women on the planet in this incarnation to be alive at the same time that you were both on this planet,
Yes.
sharing this
Appreciate
existence
that.
with me. and sharing the same reality, because we're here together in
Yep.
oneness. And I
Yep.
have so
That's right.
much love and gratitude for both
Yes.
of you. I can't even express it in words. Thank you for being here on this podcast episode. Thank you for being on this planet. Thank you for sharing this space with me. I cannot thank you enough. You're doing amazing, powerful, beautiful things in the world. Thank you for being you, because you're both just remarkable and you make this world a better place. And we definitely need more of that right now. So thank you for being here.
I appreciate
It
that.
was my pleasure and honor. And I'm so grateful that I'm connected to you, David, and that I am connected to Rachel. All of the dots, those universal dots, are just connecting for me in such a beautiful way. And it just really lets me know that I'm shifting my frequency because of the people that I'm
Yes.
drawing into my circle. So I'm really grateful for the
Yes.
both of you.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I guess, any closing words, and I think that seeing physical difference, like the illusion is not that physical difference doesn't exist, cultural difference doesn't exist.
Right.
Perfect. Yes.
Different
Yep. That's
groups
right.
may or may not have unique orientations towards approaching reality that are
Mhm.
useful for all of us to know.
Mhm.
And I think
Yes.
that if we looked at the differences in terms of how it benefits the whole, how it connects to the whole, versus
Yes.
I'm different than you and I'm better than you, and no,
Yes.
the heart isn't better than the lungs. You know what I'm saying? The
They
feet
all
aren't.
work
It
together.
all works
All work
together.
together,
And,
baby.
yeah, and if we can get that type of divisive language out of it and
Yes.
start looking at the gifts that come from each group have
So
their
good.
own unique, gifts, man, and
Yes.
approaches and orientations that everybody needs to the more I learn, the more that people reach out to me from all over the world from having this experience and this shift in my own perspective, the better I am. The more
Yeah.
I've spoken to people from Vietnam, from Kenya, from the Netherlands, from Spain, from
Hmm.
everywhere, like, and I learn that way. From India in particular too, because I've spent a lot of my attention in this life on Vedic texts and Hindu texts.
Mhm.
I learned so much
Yep.
from all of these perspectives, and it now does it just when I look at different people now, I'm just like, wow, I wonder what their story is, like what gifts reside in their DNA even.
Yes.
I understand that they're soul, but I understand also that their bloodline has been here for as long as this planet has been able to sustain human life. As long as we've had these
Yes.
bodies, their bloodline has been here. There's information there too that we
Yes.
can honor if we don't look at people and be like, I don't, you look that way, so I
Right.
don't. The
And
difference
even
is
their cultural practices,
all of it.
to
Yeah.
learn from that and to have different experiences through different
Yes.
people. So I'm so happy that you brought that point up,
Yeah,
because
because it's not
that's
to
it.
ignore it.
It isn't to
Yes.
ignore. You're right.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
there to celebrate the differences amongst us, but it's in the love that binds us all.
Yes.
Yes.
We're just all beautiful expressions of the creator. That's what we are.
That's it.
How boring would it be if we were all the same
Same.
exact?
Exactly.
My
Oh
goodness.
my gosh.
We are source itself. Source is bored looking at its own magnificence. And
Right.
so let's incarnate as all different things of the
And yep.
same
Yep.
thing
And
Yeah.
in
honor
order
that.
to simply have different experiences. We're here to honor. Oh my
Yes.
gosh, you're this, you look like that. I mean, we're the light, we're source.
Yeah.
Look at you, God incarnated as
Yeah.
you and as me,
Yep.
looking back at one another.
Yep.
This is
Yep.
wildly amazing.
Yes.
And we need to learn how to come from that space of the way of truth and honor that in one another.
Yep.
Right. And
Yeah.
then have this life experience that we can have in oneness instead of
Yes.
in the divisiveness.
And
Yes.
have our kids grow up in a world that's much better than the one that we inherited.
Yes.
Yes.
We're here to transform that. That's why we're
Yes,
here.
absolutely.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. Thank you both for being here to
Thank you.
transform this along with me, because I just feel like when more of us come together, you really see how many people are in this world awakening and
Yep.
healing this planet. We are doing it together.
Here we are.
Yeah.
And so I thank our listeners. I invite you, if this meant something to you and you know that someone could benefit from hearing it, make sure you share this out so that they can hear the beautiful soul voices of Tezra Bryant, David Williamson, and a reflection of what you are inside of yourself as well. They are mirroring what you are. We are one. Let's remember that as we move forward every day, every hour that we're alive. The truth of what we are is we are one. Let's start living it. Thank you, Tezra. Thank you, David. And thank you to our listeners. We'll see you next time.